Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining this next session of Learn with Nic live Q&A. Today, we're going to take all your questions live, so feel free to start asking the questions in the comment section below. We'll get started in about 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes now. So stay tuned. Also, if you want to join us on the Metaverse, we're all on the Metaverse now, so you can join there and join the event directly there too. So you can be on LinkedIn, you can be on YouTube, you can be on the Metaverse. We're going to give a shot today at trying to see how that goes on the Metaverse as well. So stay tuned for another 7 minutes. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining this next session of Learn with Nic live Q&A. If you have questions, start asking the questions now. We have quite a few from social media, but please go ahead and start asking the questions on the comment section below. Also, we're on the Metaverse today, so if you're on laptop, desktop, not on mobile, it's not going to work on mobile, but give a shot at the Metaverse cloudnative.town. That's the shorter link. I'm going to highlight that as well on the screen. We're also on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and you can also find us on learnwithnic.com. But let us know if you have issues with the streaming, and start with your questions. Thanks so much for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining on this new session of Learn with Nic live Q&A. We have a lot of questions from social media. As always, you can see us on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, if you still use it, and LinkedIn. But now we also are giving a shot at the metaverse on cloudnative.town. So go check it out. You'll see a lot of content there. So completely free. It's open 24/7. You can go and watch videos. We have different rooms about different themes. You will see also a lot of companies promoting and sharing their releases and what they've been working on. So the more and the bigger the community gets, the more people we're going to get to interact with, and the more fun it's going to get, because people can now go and ask questions and effectively create a community, a live community where you can go and chat with people. It's kind of a Zoom-like experience too, so you can meet with people, ask questions, share your journey, what you're struggling with, and of course, all of the Learn with Nic videos are on there. So you're going to see a lot of content on there. And right now, we can have hundreds of people. It should be just fine. So let us know how that goes. Play with the stuff. Meanwhile, if you've not subscribed, we've launched two things. One, you can go to innicofTime.tv to be able to get an email a week about the next episodes and videos we're publishing. This week video will be about regulation ops, and how you can remove bottlenecks from your regulation compliance using reg ops solutions to help you streamline the process. So it's going to be interesting, I hope. Every week, as you know, we have new content. So if you want to subscribe, we're not bombarding people. We're not using it for sales or anything like that. So go and subscribe. We also, on the innicoftype.us, the other site, we have two sites. The .tv is for the mailing, and .us is the portal for all the content we have. So if you go to innicoftype.us, if you're not on iPhone, unfortunately, it seems iPhone is blocking it right now. But if you're on any other device, you'll be able to get a pop-up that shows up telling you to subscribe to application notifications. So you're going to be notified once a week of the work we do. Unfortunately, LinkedIn, despite having 45,000 followers, often throttle the posts we do, often down to 300 views. So particularly when it's about China. So if you want to get the real stuff directly from us, it's just the way to go. Okay. We want to be independent from big tech and big media. So again, today, join on cloudnative.town. You'll see the metaverse. People can come and walk around and have fun. You can stay after. You can chat. I'll be there a lot along the days and hours. And it's only on desktop laptops. Don't try on a mobile. It doesn't work very well. Gather is not yet able to do that. Hopefully, it's going to come soon. But in the meantime, that's what we get. And you'll see learning rooms, a learning path with all the videos step by step in the order of complexity, so you can get started and really get to the most complex piece of the puzzle. You'll see also we have a CNCF space with all the CNCF related companies, and we have the DevSecOps event space where we do events with companies, and they'll have their videos and content, and often you're going to find their salespeople and technical people there to help you if you have questions. So don't hesitate to try it out and let us know what you think. Of course, Learn with Nic is still here. 2 coupon codes: military for military, civilians, and veterans for 50% off, and then Let's Beat China for early adopters. So check that out. Up to 3,000 now. We upped it from 2,000. So then this week we released a video on WebAssembly. So check it out if you have not seen it. We're going to do follow-up videos on it because there was a lot of questions. But that was an entry-level video on WebAssembly and why it's kind of a game-changing capability for performance-intensive applications on the web. So check that out. And it's also going out of the browser, getting into containers, and it's used now in Envoy for the service mesh, for the proxy, to bring capabilities on the fly. So, check it out. It's actually pretty interesting. Let us know what you think of the video, and let us know what we can improve with all the content we publish. And I have the questions, of course, already popping up. We'll be taking questions in a second. So keep asking the questions in the comment section. Do it on LinkedIn, ideally YouTube, and the metaverse in the chat section, because we have so many platforms. It doesn't always bring everything to us, so it's tough to keep up with all the different platforms. Okay. Finally, before I start with the questions, we have a store in nickofTime.tv with fun t-shirts and stuff. All the profit, 100% of the profits, we make no money. We actually lose money with this. So all the profits go to the Fisher House Foundation for this quarter. So I love to write them a big check if you help us do that. We're donating money ourselves, but we need your help. So if you want to buy a fun t-shirt, there's DoD fun stuff there. And if you have ideas of design for the next quarter, let us know. We can do something fun. But right now, all the profits go to the Fisher House for this quarter. So please continue helping us there. It's always nice. Now, we'll start the questions. I have quite a few. I guess Fahim here was the first. So we're going to go there. And then I have a few more on other platforms. So again, don't forget to check out the metaverse if that's easier for you. And let us know also playing around what you think of it. So there was a question from Fahim about, will TikTok get banned? Will it be a federal effort? Does TikTok alternative made in the US could help? So let's go step by step. What you start seeing finally after we tried with the Trump administration to ban it, and it was with my recommendation. In fact, I was the first one in the government to bring TikTok and the CCP engagement to light. And we almost did it. It was blocked by the federal coup. And then, of course, TikTok started to engage with Oracle to say they would move their data to the US cloud. But that's not enough, right? I mean, you can host your data anywhere you want. If the CCP has access to the data, it kind of makes no difference. It's just an additional hop for them to worry about. Very easy to circumvent, obviously, and it's already happening. So, and by the way, the migration to Oracle is not even finished after a year or 2 years. So clearly that's useless. You start seeing Congress talking about banning TikTok. Often states now are banning it, but it's only banned on government devices. I think that's very short-sighted. My take is any government employee should be banned from using, at the very least, that's a very baby step to ban from using TikTok, even in their personal capacity, because they are targets of the CCP, and gathering intel on government employee is obviously a big problem, particularly when you give away all your contacts, your face prints, voice prints, all the files on your device. They get access to a lot of things. It's actually pretty scary when you look at the access grant on devices for TikTok. You wonder why Apple and the Google Play Store are not paying attention to application permissions. That's a little scary to me, but so that's definitely something to worry about. You see the baby step now with some states, right? I think it's 11, 12 states, I think, banning TikTok. Now Congress just today, I think, working on the law to ban it from government devices. That's not enough, right? I don't think it will make a difference. The fact is, a lot of exchanges between personal devices and government devices, and so you would have to do something broader than this. Ideally, it will be a federal effort, so we don't have to rely on each state to wake up. That's going to take forever. But I would argue that should be just banned on the U.S., not just for federal employees, but for any U.S. citizens, just like China would have banned all apps, by the way. And I get it why people say we don't want to be like China, but we also don't want to be fools and idiots, right? And let China take over all that intel and data to be able to train the AI ML models and control the narrative. A few numbers for you to pay attention to. Kids under 14 in China with the Douyin version, which is the Chinese version of TikTok, are limited to 1 hour of TikTok, right, a day. It's banned at night. They did a study actually that I read in China about the algorithm and how toxic it is in terms of particularly younger brains. And so what you find is it's as bad as heroin. So hard drugs, it's effectively as addictive with the swipe up and short span, videos. Very toxic for adults, but even more so for kids. Not to mention, of course, China is pushing educational content on Douyin, historical content, versus here in the US, you see half naked women and dance videos, right? So that's pretty scary. So definitely my take is until the government bans it completely. And sure, the alternative could be a US alternative, although my take is the swipe up and kind of that short attention span videos, 1 minute under stuff. It's overall pretty toxic. You don't learn a lot. It's very toxic for the brain. A U.S. company would have kind of the same negative impact on the population, and particularly the younger kids. So I don't know. I know people got addicted to it, and even when I play, even on YouTube now, they do it right. They do it on Facebook, do it on YouTube. Very addictive, and it's I find myself wasting a freaking 30 minutes. I watch one video and it turned into a 30 minutes ordeal. Don't do that. Watch Learn with Nic instead, right? So so hopefully that answered the question. But a US alternative would be the same problem. I would rather it to be in the US, but I would still recommend a very stringent limitation, very much like China did, right? 1 hour a day for kids under 14, ban at night. They need parental approval, by the way, for kids to use it, which used to be a thing, kind of went away somehow magically, despite Facebook and all these Snapchat and other companies knowing how bad it is for kids. It's just all greedy and want to make sure they control the younger population's brain. So that's sad. All right, so let's see. And again, if you have questions, don't forget on LinkedIn, but also on the metaverse here, and you have the chat there in the metaverse on the bottom right. Click on the little chat icon and just type the question. Bottom right of the screen next to it looks like two bubbles, right? So let's see on this platform, what do we got? All right, so Jim was asking, he's curious about how far are we in taking requirements models from modeling and simulation MBSC and running them on Wargame as service platforms like Cameo, SysML. I think we're pretty far, right? I think the issue you find is we did Monday with Dr. Roper the use of open formats, right, to be able to have these modeling digital twins that would be compatible regardless of what technical stack you're using. Obviously, you have different level of maturity between teams, but I've yet to see teams able to do that on a broader scale, meaning system of system kind of thing, or like broader DAF wide, or Air Force, Space Force, or Navy, Army wide, war game level. I don't even think, honestly, that is the issue also with modeling and simulation platforms. Windows-based, pretty legacy, applications, not very designed for scale. And, I'm wondering if that would completely implode the capacity of the application. I mean, you want to get there, right? I'm still agree with you that that's where you want to be, right? Because that's where you would get a real representation of what would happen in real life. And the more you can digitize and have a digital twin of the entirety of the landscape, the more you're going to have an accurate representation of what's going on. If you look at the war exercise at the Pentagon, for example, with Taiwan, every single time within a day, we lost all communications against China. So we will lose all comms within 24 hours. That's pretty bad, right? Let alone trying to then solve the other piece of the puzzle. If you have no comms, you end up like Russia, where you have a bunch of generals using cell phones and getting killed. It's probably not a good idea, right? So, I think we're pretty far away. To answer your question, I could see a zero trust movement go very fast if there was the right push under 5 years. This stuff that you're talking about here, I would think is like 10 to 20 years away, and that's unfortunate because we need it now, but it is a very big lift, and you'll be surprised of the dependencies between vendors and subs, and the lack of transparency, even sometimes between primes and subs, funny enough. So it could be interesting to get to that picture. And of course they're going to overclassify it, so then of course who has access to the stuff. Once you have a lot of systems in there, obviously you have to protect it, but then if no one can use it, it kind of defeat the point. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's probably the biggest achievement that digital twins and the digital engineering teams could achieve, even if as little as just doing the aircraft piece and the nuclear ground piece, right? Let alone doing the whole JADC2 picture. People talk about JADC2, but they fail at even showing the key pieces there, right? You have, for me, the foundation of open architecture, DevSecOps, right? Cloud / edge / decoupling of transport with 5G, satellite like Starlink and such, and fiber, and connecting to the backbone of the Amazon and Azure of the world, and other clouds. And then you have the digital engineering piece that would really enable that. And then pub sub events, right, with Kafka-like technology, and structured and unstructured data on the lake and the warehouse to be able to collect data and telemetry, hot, warm, and cold. That's kind of the MVP of JADC2 I had designed in 4 months. But yeah. So all right, let's see what else we got. And again, feel free to ask on any of the platforms. So Killy was asking on the cloud native platform. I'm going to copy it for people on the other platform so you can see it. That's kind of the issue. There is no sharing across universes. So let's do that. I'm going to post it here so you can see the question. And I can bring it up here. So in addition to an SBOM, what are the key considerations for securing a software supply chain? So it's actually interesting because on the show next week, Tuesday, we have Mehan, the CEO of Rapid4. We're talking also to people like Chain Guard, right? And the container hardening and the software hardening piece, right? There's a lot of pieces. He's going to do a pretty good job at describing, the key pieces, but I'm going to give it a shot now. The first piece is knowing your software attack surface, right? So knowing what's in the software. So the SBOM piece, of course, give you insights, but depending of how precise it is, right, between dependencies and, hey, I copy and pasted some code from a Stack Overflow, right, and it has a bunch of issues in there. So there's a lot of pieces when it comes to attack surface. Of course, you have the base OS, you have, where is that going to be running and what architecture. That's why, the platform piece is so important. I have a video, I'll put the link on why Kubernetes is a must. People fight me on this a lot. People say, hey, Kubernetes obviously is overkill for many use cases and there are other ways. I agree. I'm not saying there's no other ways. What I'm saying, though, is that what I argue is that the benefits on the cyber side to use Kubernetes for everything, including when you don't need it, is actually where you want to be. And so I'll show you that video. I'm gonna try to find it here. Why Kubernetes is a must. There we go. Even if overkill. So I'll put the link on the chat here. So the first piece, right, like we talk about, is I have too many screens. You wouldn't believe how many screens I end up with. Not only the metaverse and all these streams. All right, let's do that here. I'll put the link, and you'll find it. Everything is on youtube.com/Nicolas Chaillan. Okay, so if you go there, you're going to see all the videos. But this one in particular is the video on, I'll put the link also on the other chat. So the orchestration stack, right, the attack surface, what you have, dependencies, okay, SBOM, right? But then you're going to look at hardening. So how are you going to harden your base OS, right? And it's not just STIG nonsense from this side. I'm talking real hardening, right? Removing stuff you don't need, what all the gain in performance there, right? And then you have, of course, the bits, what TLS bits are you using, the different dependencies. And then, to go back to the question, right? What are the other considerations? Well, when you're picking open source project, who is part of that project? The volume of contributions, is it dying? Is it becoming end of life? Are you keeping up with updating your dependencies? Despite not having CVEs, doesn't mean you should get 2, 3, 4, 5 years behind in updating dependencies. You should actually, really try to stay up to the same level of releases they do. And through automation of testing, that's where, you want to pick projects that have testing so you can test that the new update of that dependencies is not breaking the features on your product, right? So having that baking testing is, again, essential there. So you want to do that baked in. The other piece, of course, is going to be what base OS are you using for your base images. What else do we got? We talk about the scanning, the hardening. So the security of your build CI/CD pipeline is essential, right? People are now going to try to get into that, right? They're gonna try to literally tamper with your CI/CD pipeline, and if they do that, right, obviously they can tamper with your bits. So now you're signing bits that are effectively messed up to begin with. So, I think the cattle piece, right? So you have a video if you go on YouTube, right? And I'm not going to put all the links. It's going to be easier for you to find it on youtube.com, and I'm just going to put the main link so you can find them. They're all in the list in the Nick of Time. Learn with Nick. So if you go on the YouTube stuff, you're going to see all the videos. Yeah. So the cattle, right? So short-lived, right? Ephemeral. The identity piece, right? People always forget about short-lived identities, right? The data centricity, we have a great video. That's why I always point back to the video, but we spend so much time, on these videos, 7 to 10 minutes a pop. Obviously, was really 2 hours of editing and doing the work. But if you look at a few videos there, you're gonna see we have a SBOM video. You want to check that out, because SBOM people have different expertise, different level of maturity too, right? So people say, "Oh, I do SBOM," but really, do you for real, right? So SBOM. You want to check cattle versus pet video. You want to check the video how to move at a pace of relevance with baked-in security. You want to check the video on why Kubernetes is a must. All these pieces are telling you a lot of information about securing your software supply chain and effectively your software delivery. The other piece we have not covered yet is multi-party signing and having something like Tough in Toto open source projects to each phase of your build, right? Your different scanning, SAST, DAST, cyber scanning, malware, container security scanning, all these things you should do. Each phase would generate an artifact that's signed, and then to release the software, the final software in the registry to be consumed to production, they would have to pass all the signatures and all the artifacts to the final multi-party signing key that can only be released by a non-person entity, no people, just automatically, and only if it's passing all of these artifacts, and then only then the software gets released and signed with a final key that's only accessible to a non-person entity. You do not want to have human, right, to be able to do that. We also, did a video on the Uber breach and a lot of lessons learned there on the supply chain and the mistake they made of hard coding, passwords in Git, right? Of course, GitOps, right? So overall, that's why it's so complex, right? Answering the question is like, well, everything we tell you about and Learn with Nick, you have to do to be able to say that your software supply chain is secure, right? Because it's everything commingles and interact. So And you've seen, right, the FBI notifications info guard system, right, getting breached. Very little security in there. They actually got into a CEO's account of one of the company. I mean, obviously everybody is going through a background check, but it doesn't mean they know very much about technology, particularly a CEO of a company that's doing non-techie stuff. And so the CEO got his account breached, and then apparently they managed a way to laterally move because they were able to do much more than what one account could do. And so they effectively got access to the 80,000 accounts of the FBI InfoGuard notification process. So now China has literally access to all the key people that are supposed to protect critical infrastructure in the nation. And now they know exactly everything about them. Just like it's as bad as the OPM breach. It's a smaller scale, but it's as bad because they have access to so much intel. They probably knew it anyways, but still pretty concerning, right? So someone was asking, let's see, about Atlassian. What are the alternative to Atlassian? That's kind of a problem. I don't know if you've seen my post on Atlassian again, but there's another issue again with the tokens that are issued, where if you change your password or you reset, the token is not expiring automatically. So the token will still exist for 30 days or whatever days you enable it for. And I would recommend people to really understand that short-lived tokens are essential. I don't care if you have to log in again, and I know it's painful, and I understand, but I don't really care. I can tell you that the risk of these tokens ending up in logs and telemetry and on the dark web effectively is obviously a big problem. And particularly when you use third-party services, you don't know what they do with the logs. You don't know where that goes. When you integrate, Jira with some CI/CD pipeline tool as a SaaS, that's why I go back to multi-tenant SaaS. Is so scary to me for critical stuff. I would not use it for identity management. I would not use it for policy enforcement point, zero trust stuff. I would not use it for Git. So no GitHub.com, no unless it's open source, and GitLab.com. I would host it as a dedicated tenant, right, for important stuff. The multi-tenancy aspect of SaaS is so scary. And that's how they get the keys, by the way, why these SaaS gets hacked. We don't hear about it, by the way, because there's very little requirement to actually disclose it to customers, by the way, right? So you can get away with it, not even talking to customers about it. In many industries, there's no requirement. And so you end up with, the web, these databases breached, and they feel like nothing was changed, but they took all the tokens, and those tokens can then be used to laterally move to other cron jewels. So overall, you want to be paying attention to make these tokens pretty short-lived, right? Because if someone gets in, it's a problem, right? So Katie was asking any thoughts on Repo One security. So Repo One is hosted on GitLab on Platform One Cloud, government enclave managed by the government. So it's effectively a dedicated instance of GitLab. So there's issues, right? Because one, you're internet facing, right? I mean, ideally for crown jewel stuff, you would wanna host the GitLab instance behind something like the Cloud Native Access Point, CNAP, with zero trust, policy enforcement point in front of it, acting as a proxy, right? So it wouldn't be internet facing. But for us, for Repo One, because one, it's open source work, two, it's engagements with industry, so we need it widely accessible. Obviously, we're okay taking a risk to say, hey, we're going to make it internet facing, and that's a trade-off we have to do. Well, that's obviously opening the door to GitLab having a 0-day and someone getting in or creating an account. Of course, because also we also let people create accounts. You double down, right? Because if there's an issue in GitLab about privilege escalation once you have an account, that's accelerating the risk right there. So anything that's internet facing, I was the first one to put Atlassian behind the CNAP, I was very concerned. People complained, and they said, "Oh, it's not convenient to have the CNAP on devices." But look at Atlassian, right? You put that stuff internet facing, and you end up with a disaster that happened with the DI2E, which got tremendous amount of DoD data leaked to China. So it's big problem, right? So I guess when you want to mitigate some of the risk and the threats of internet facing technology, that's why you bring the CNAP, the cloud native access point. We use AppGate. AppGate has a client on the device. You authenticate. It creates a very additional layer of complexity for a malicious actor to get in. And you get a device identity, you get a user strong identity. So you have MFA, you have strong identity on the device. You have a lot of different things. Okay. So let's see. Sam was asking, is vendor hosted version control system safe place? Whoa, wait, I'm trying to understand what you typed here. I'm not sure it's proper English. Is vendor hosted version control system? Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, sorry. So effectively, is a vendor hosted Git, is a safe place to check in IP and code or algorithm. I don't think so. I would not do that. Okay. My take is multi-tenant SaaS capabilities are fine for a very limited set of things. We're walking away from SaaS, in my opinion. Now what you're going to find is the same companies delivering, a Helm chart or Kubernetes operator in your Kubernetes environment. And your Kubernetes environment might be on the same freaking cloud, Amazon, Azure, Google, whatever, but it's single tenant. So you're drastically limiting the risk. You can put your Kubernetes API and your cluster behind your zero trust enforcement. You have the centralized logging and telemetry, the full visibility. The fact is, SaaS services, you look at Okta, they got breached. Only 5% of the account got breached, but still, well, first, that's what they say. We don't know for sure. Two, they took 3 months to tell people, right, which is despicable, right? So like using anything critical, like identity management, Git, zero trust control plane, key cyber capabilities, particularly when they have elevated privileges to your stack, that should not be a multi-tenant SaaS. If you have a dedicated instance and it's hosted, that's one thing. But ideally, the way I want it, and that's why I say Kubernetes is a must, and I want to have all my stuff running on Kubernetes in my cluster, even if my cluster is multi-tenant, is multi-cloud, and very flexible. I want to have everything as containers in my cluster, because I get the centralized telemetry visibility. I get the zero trust enforcement. I get to know what's going on. I get the behavior continuous monitoring that we use, with companies like Aqua, Twistlock, right, and New Vector and others, right. So you have the continuous monitoring of the behavior down to the syscall of the kernel. You have no visibility with what's going on, by the way, with any of these companies. Okay, so you cannot put something critical. If it's open source and you want to put it on GitHub, great, right? That, who cares? The other piece is, making sure you keep track of the contributors' accounts. Do they use MFA? You should not let any Git repo without multi-factor authentication. Every commit should be signed. You should have multiple set of eyes approval always for any change to merge the code from a merge request, a pull request. Always at least 2, if not more, if it's critical. So no one is coming into your code to tamper your source of truth. If you move to GitOps, your source code repo is your crown jewel. It's a key. I mean, for us in Platform One, for example, that was like, you get into the source code repo, you can change policies, you can change access control. Everything is policy as code, configuration as code. You can control the entire space if you get into Git, right? So obviously that's like giving the keys to the kingdom to a third-party vendor, right? That would be insane. So hopefully that answers the question. So back to the question about Atlassian alternatives. Obviously, there's an issue when it comes to Atlassian, and that's probably why they're getting away with murder and 1,200 CVEs in a single container. The first piece is, there's not a lot of competition, and even if you look at the competition, they don't have all the bells and whistles of Atlassian. Bitbucket, I think it's dead. No one wants to use it. It's useless. I mean, go GitLab or GitHub. Unfortunately, GitHub is still not able to give me a container to run on my Kubernetes cluster, so it's a bloated, legacy tool already. I mean, it requires its dedicated operating system. They have their own Linux. It's very, very poorly designed nowadays. A lot of tech debt, I would argue, very much opinionated, very much stuck in time, very much not designed to be customer hosted. So I would go with GitLab. And then GitLab does bring a lot of collaboration tools, but it's just not as good as Atlassian. Although when you start looking at the plugins and the origin of the plugins, I wonder if do you even want to use it? So then if you don't want to use it, then what else are you going to do, right? So I would stay away from Atlassian, Confluence, Jira, right? There's a lot of options, but it's true that not many of them are doing a lot of work with the government. So trying to also convince some of these companies, right, to come and engage with the government customers, I think is so essential, right? So we always need your help to do that. The more people get excited, the more you have diversity of options, right? So that was on Atlassian alternatives, and for people that missed it, the Atlassian token, right, does not expire when you change password on you reset the account. So then that token can still be used. That's a pretty big mistake they made. Okay, you shouldn't do that. By the way, questions, feel free on both the metaverse chat and the LinkedIn, Twitter. Twitter has a few. Let me see a little bit. Too many platforms. You wouldn't believe the mess. So yeah. So a question was, what's the easiest way to see the latest videos? So there's a playlist, Learn with Nic, in the youtube.com/my name, right? So if you go on youtube.com/Nicolas Chaillan, right, you'll be able to see Learn with Nic. And right now we have, 50, 60 videos there. People were asking, where to start. Well, if you go on the cloud, first the playlist is sorted, right, by logical progression. So if you go through the playlist on YouTube, you'll be able to do that. Okay, it's ordered. Okay, but if you go on the metaverse, which requires a laptop, and that's, I hope Gather will make it available on mobile. But so if you're on mobile, go to YouTube, right? If you're not on mobile, you have a what we call the learning path. You put the spacesuit and you go in space, and you have the videos in order. So 1, 2, 3, you just walk through and you push X, right, to play the video, and then it will show up on your screen and you can play it. But if you just want to do the playlist on YouTube, that's fine too. We're debating creating a mobile app, right? And that way we can have notifications. What we find is people start watching stuff and they probably forget or get busy or whatever, and they stop watching. And then when I contact people and say, hey, you stopped watching, is it because of the quality of the content, or can we improve stuff? It's no, I just forget. I'm going to go back and try again. That's the issue when you don't have notifications. People forget. I get it. So we're debating what to do. So if you go on the inthenickoftime.us, not TV. .tv is to subscribe to the mailing list, but again, 20% only of the emails get opened. So many get blocked by spams. So that's not great. So we're thinking application notifications will let us tell you when the next video is up. So if you watch all the videos now, it's about 6 hours, maybe 7 hours now of content, but you learn a ton. I mean, we cover, maybe we just give you a few examples here to answer your question of what we cover, but it's a lot. I mean, you really will really cover everything you need to know. And more than just scratching the surface. Okay, you will really have deep dives on key topics. So of course, we have containers, DevSecOps, moving target defense, continuous behavior monitoring, zero trust, right? What is CI/CD, right? Service mesh, cattle versus pet, monolithic versus microservices, how to cut a monolith to turn it into microservices. We have case studies like SpaceX versus F-35, how to balance cyber innovation. I did a video on how I educated the DoD leadership on the importance of DevSecOps and build a momentum to get traction in your company to do that. I think that's a great, I have 10, 11 advice there that I use to convince, people to do it. How to measure and track your maturity of DevSecOps, how to enable teams to focus on their mission software, fail fast, learn fast, don't fail twice for the same reason. What are SLAs, SLOs, SLIs, observability, blameless postmortem, how to prevent change management from becoming your biggest bottleneck, right? What is policy as code, data centricity. So if you're moving to data centricity, I show exactly how we did the implementation of labeling and how we delegate policy management to the data owners so it doesn't become a bottleneck. We have a full video on the cloud native access point and how we designed the biggest implementation of zero trust in the DoD. Digital twin, right? Istio, we have a Istio 0 to 60 in 2.5 hours, full deep dive on the service mesh. So anyway, I hope you watch it. We spent a lot of time doing this and it's all there for you for free. So Dan has a question. What are your best practices for data discovery, classification, and identifying PII, PHI, and Intel? Our clients are worried about PII, PHI, and their unstructured data from on-prem and cloud instances. So here's what we did, right? First, when we built the data fabric, we made it so we have both the PubSub events with Kafka, and we have a data lake, data warehouse capability that can do structured and unstructured data, and it can federate or aggregate data. So what that means is we have edge capabilities that can decide based on the importance of data, because let's face it, not all of the data is going to be at the same place usually, right? So unless your customer is very good, you're going to find that they have data all over the place. So the first piece is visibility, right? Because if you don't know where the data is, you can't do any of it. So then you have to decide: do I federate? Do I aggregate? Aggregate means you pull the data, from all these different edge solutions. Could be legacy databases, could be other data lake, data warehouses, SaaS services, whatever. And you pull it and you bring it into a central place that becomes your aggregated lake, right? That is great and is perfect for velocity and speed of access and querying the data. But let's face it, not everyone can aggregate. All data is very expensive, right? Now, what we did is we had both options. When I designed the data fabric for the Air Force, we had the federation option too. The federation option is an edge device that you put in front of the lake and the legacy system, and it could be a container, it could be a full hardware thing. And what we did there is that will query the data in real time, but of course you have latency, right? So what we do is we return the results that we have in the aggregated lake immediately, but the federated data only flows, when we get it, right? So the user is not waiting for all of the federated data lakes to start pushing back data and then send it as a one response. We send right away the response coming from the central lake, and then the federated pieces answer anytime they have the answer to the query. So first, that gives us visibility on the data and stuff. The second piece is labeling. We use a proxy using Open Policy Agent, OPA, and that enables us to label data down to the cell level. So not only the object, but like let's say you have a table. In the table, you have the who, what, right? The who could be TSSCI and the what could be SecRel. So you can label down to each field of the table. So Open Policy Agent is using Policy as code, And then you have AI/ML capabilities that can scan your content and detect, obviously, any type of PII and PHI and whatever syntax you want to detect automatically. You're gonna have some false positives, right? It's not gonna be perfect, but that's okay. And so that's how we first automatically label. But then we also have a UI for the data owner, where the data owner, there's two aspects. One, they need to be able to create a label. So to create a label, they go and they can create a label, then they can assign it to their data, first at the object level, but then also down to the cell. Okay, so they go down to the cell, and they can now effectively, really label data very precisely on the granular level manually, right? The other piece is we have a UI now for the user side, where the data owner can say, with this constraint, this user get my label. If it's a user of the US device, if it's between 5 and 7 p.m. I mean, they can do time of the day, geofencing, type of device being used, user identity, and kind of, properties of the user token. So if, based on the country, based on, the type of role they have in the organization, right? So they get a JSON web token where they can assign the label based on conditions that are dynamic. It could be, hey, if I'm on my personal device, I don't get to see the PII, but if I'm on my government device, I get to see my PII. Okay, so all that stuff effectively is how, one, we delegate and enable, and don't create a bottleneck, right? To enable data owners to label data at the granular level, and then assign the label to users automatically based on conditions. Now, when you augment that labeling by AI/ML self-labeling, that's how you can detect PII, PHI. There's a lot of solutions, right, that can just scan your data, both structured and unstructured, by the way, and find PII. You have to do the right, setup, and really knowing what you're looking for. It's not magical, and you want to avoid false positives, right? You don't want to label PII what's not PII. So there are plenty of AI models that can then connect to your data lake and self-label the data using policy as code. The key is that you want to use the same policy enforcement for the self-labeling or the data owner labeling. So I'm debating working on taking the data fabric we built, by the way, which is all based on open source tools, and bring it as a product. Because a lot of people ask me about this, and this is designed to be push button and instantiable on any environment, whether it's it has to be on Kubernetes, but it could be on the cloud, on premise, on vSphere, whatever, disconnected, air gapped. So I'm debating now to go and partner with some of the companies that helped me create this thing when I was in the government, and bring it as a commercial product, because so many people want it, and no one is just able to just take it and run, and they need some hand holding. So if you think people would be interested, we have all the stuff I just described right here already done. So that could be a lot of fun, so yeah, and Eski is right here talking about doing the same for the personalization and the history of the user behavior, right? So obviously, when we created the cloud native access point, right, we brought the first ever DNS, DoD.mil DNS on the cloud. No one knows this, but it's running on core DNS on Kubernetes. It was never done before to put it outside of on-prem. Then, of course, not only we did it outside of on-prem, we made it containerized, highly scalable, cloud agnostic, and completely managed as policy as code. So all the DNS entries are policy as code. No one had did that before. Okay, so that's pretty cool. We brought the ICAM piece, the non-person entity, ICAM piece, short-lived identities. We brought the data labeling and data centricity piece. We brought the device enforcement piece, Complete to Connect, to assess the device state and look at the state of the device. with clients to see, what patching state, Windows update, or whatever updates, what endpoint protection solution they're using or not using. So then you can decide based on these criteria and the risk posture of the user and the device, compounded what they're supposed to have access to by using this concept of software-defined parameter and what we call the segment of one. So we have a whole video on that. I'm not going to go through all that, but go check the Cloud Native Access Point video. You'll see a lot of pretty cool stuff there. So there's a question here. Do you have an opinion about the NIST categorization step? What about prepare? Look, NIST has done a very good job, right? Writing a lot of great information and documentation on not just, the cyber framework, but also you look at OSCAL, right? I helped in a few publications on DevSecOps, Service Mesh, right? The 204 series. I mean, there's just a lot of great stuff. The issue often is it's so I'm going to call it bloated a little bit, right? It's a lot to read. It's a lot of details. It's very little tangible implementation examples. So it's often academic and not so much, something you can just take and run with. That's the only downside, right? It's designed for the masses, and it's so vague that you still have to do a lot of work to figure it out. So that's why with Platform One, by bringing a turnkey, fully automated GitOps and infrastructure as code configuration as code, already meeting all the requirements, that's just a much easier value proposition for teams to take it and run, right? And so the prepare piece, of course, back to your question, is essential, just like, identifying all the assets. But the issue with the step, right? It sounds like a waterfall, process. And the fact is, if you're in agile methodologies, this is going to be a continuous thing, and you don't want to spend 5 years preparing and then go to the next step. You want to do it in a very agile, continuous way. And so I'm not a big fan of the steps, because it feels like it's still pushing the waterfall mindset, and we're not in waterfall anymore. And if you want to have small incremental delivery of value and move at the pace of relevance, right, you want to have that flexibility, right? And so you don't want to be stuck in time, and you don't want to spend 5 years preparing, so that when you start doing it, you start learning that everything you prepared for was on the wrong expectation. And now you learn and you have to go back to prepare. I mean, it's just, you want to be agile, right? And look, everything that's making agile bloated, whether it's safe, creating this massive structure of alleged agility, and product owner management, it's just so toxic. I mean, I've seen teams waste 50% of their budget and time on safe, useless meetings instead of building software, right? So, you want to do what works for you, and you want to be nimble. The key is small incremental delivery of value in production, in the hands of your end user, to get actual feedback on what you're building, and not building in a vacuum, not building in a lab. And having a lab with 5 end users is not the same as production, So all this is how you build software in life, right? So, let's see. Yeah, so the other thing with labeling, right? With data labeling, Eski is right again, right? She, I think it's a she, I'm not sure, but she's really pointing the fact that people overthink the labeling piece, right? They want to coordinate labels. DoD spent 5 years debating labels and how to name it. And look, you go to Google when they index the entire freaking web. They don't go to companies and say, oh, you should label this way and that way. And they figure it out. AI, ML now understands how to categorize data, right? So you don't see Google do it, right? You don't see Google bugging you with labels. Why would we bug program offices with labels, telling them you have to use this label versus that label? My take is, don't waste your time there. Just allow the data owner to label stuff. Use AI, ML. decentralize, delegate down to the people that know the stuff, get out of the way, don't create a bottleneck of labeling, and let people run, and you're going to get more outcomes that way than anything else you could do. And the labeling will happen. At first, it's going to be bloated. It's going to be vague, right? So when we label stuff that we don't know, we over-label it. So maybe we over-classify the stuff. But then, the owner can come and like be more granular and be more flexible and create new labels and say, no, this is secret, but this is unclass or whatever, right? So you really, and by the way, the data centricity and zero trust is the only path to having hope for DoD to flatten all the impact levels, meaning unclass, secret, top secret, even SAP, by labeling data on a more granular level and flattening the network, and having the same capabilities across classification levels, so. Yeah, clearly you long hair. I just can't see it very well. It's so small on my screen here. That's why. Sorry. But you never know nowadays. 81 genders. So I don't know. I don't assume anymore. Last time I had a very nice lady that told me she was a bird. Okay, so, and the pronouns was fluffy and something. So I don't know. Let's see, 4 minutes left. So I wanted to remind everybody, right, next Tuesday, 1 p.m., we're going to have a great guest. That's the last episode of the year. It'll be fun. With Maran coming from Rapid Fault. If you don't know Rapid Fault, go check it out. It's a supply chain / hardening of software capability, understanding your attack surface, reducing it, looking at performance issues, looking at dependencies. It's very granular. It's pretty cool. I was pretty impressed. So we'll see how the show goes next week. And then, we'll go back to the new year until January 10th, so we have a lot of amazing guests. The show is booked pretty much until March now. If you have people you think we should invite, let us know. We want to have, more women on the show, by the way. It's tough. It's not like I'm not trying. I just don't find them. So if you have a cool lady that wants to come in on the show, as long as they're good. I don't want to have women just for the sake of having women, by the way. I want good guests, but I like to have more women. Okay. So yeah, I hope that was useful. The Gather Town, this is a new try for us. Use it. It's open 24/7. I'll be here a lot. But by the way, it's free, right? So companies are putting their whole employees, and we can create you a full room for your team and completely separate it. And then you can come and share what you're working on. So I know Raft, I know, VivSoft, Defense Unicorns, Harness, Traceable, I don't know. I'm blanking, but I know a bunch of companies working to create a dedicated space, both for internal employees, but also then to have ways to share with public their releases and stuff. So, yeah, the go-karts. I like the spacesuit. We kind of hacked Gather to replace the go-kart to make it a spacesuit because I had a space theme. So I'm gonna try to get rid of the go-kart and just replace them all by spacesuit anyway. So with that, I want to thank everybody for the time. You can stay here on Gather, have fun, talk to each other. You can actually go. We have these meeting rooms on the right side, right? There's my office there. But we have rooms on the left side about DevSecOps, Cyber Smash. So if hey, I want to talk about Cyber Smash, people can come and you can have a video chat, right? Zoom. We have a lot of telcos, banks, healthcare, 7 nations, right? So you're going to get feedback. You're going to see that you're all struggling with the same problems. So if we can help you have questions, feel free to type in the chat. We have these live Q&A every 2 weeks, although the next 2 weeks is for Christmas, so we have to skip it. So we'll see each other next year. But hopefully this is helpful to you, and share it with your friends. Just find one friend and share the video. That's all I'm asking. It's a lot of work to do these videos. You wouldn't believe it. We don't have a team. We don't have a team. So it's a lot of work. So with that, I wanted to thank you. You stay safe. If I don't see you, if you're here next Tuesday for the show, thank you for joining. If not, I'll see you next year. So happy holidays and happy new year. Stay safe. Bye-bye.